Hey guys, it's Ian and Aaron back from CrossFit Littleton. Second part of the overhead video series. We're going to talk about the push press. Before we pick up the barbell, we're going to establish how to generate power in the push press from the waist down. We'll say something about the chest, and then we'll pick up the barbell and do the whole movement. The concept of the push press is that now I've got a load that I can no longer press in a strict sense without using my legs. I'm not strong enough. The load is that heavy now. So in the push press, Erin's going to take what's called a jumping stance generally. Her hips, her feet are going to be under her hips, and how she generates power is very important. One of the most common things that is so difficult to fix in clients, that happens chronically over and over and over again, if we put Erin on the profile, is that when they go to dip, they shoot the knees forward and the hips break forward. And when this happens, we've already lost that line of force with the ground, right? It's akin to the pipe going semi-soft. And we need to keep that maximum power transfer when she dips for that drive. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to trade this kind of forward movement for staying in the heels and driving the knees laterally out on this axis instead of having movement on this axis here. So now when Erin dips, she's going to stay in her heels, she's going to take a big breath, she's going to drive her knees open hard. It's really weird for a lot of people. Not only are people generally weak on the outside here, and we always have a problem with the knees buckling and things of that nature, but this bow-legged kind of position needs to be drilled and trained and trained and trained. But when she stays in her heel and she drives those knees open hard, that line of force with the ground is maintained. Again, what we don't want is for her to shoot her knees forward and break her hips forward. And a lot of times, people also get this lean back here. This is the most exaggerated kind of way to demonstrate this. This is no good. So she stands up tall, she takes a big breath, she stays in her heel, she dips and she drives her knees at this axis. Okay? It's a quick, short, punchy dip. Also in the push press, it's as if her hip is fused, or there's like this invisible plane of glass here. She's not allowed to drop her chest when she dips. We'll see that sometimes, that perhaps the client has good mechanics on the bottom half, but when they dip, the chest drops. This is no good. We're losing power here, and then we have to stabilize that bar or use more energy to kind of recover from that position. So she's not allowed to drop her chest. So now she's going to go ahead and grab the bar. Since we're moving on from the press position, we are now basically in a derivative of Olympic lifting or jerking, or we're just about to move on to the jerk. So for both the push press and any forms of the jerk, we're going to widen the hands out, right? And no part of the back of her hand should be overlapping her shoulder. Her hands should sit outside of her shoulder. This would be common to refer to this as her clean grip, about a thumb's width off the knurling, so that when she comes back up into the rack, her hand is clearly outside of her shoulder, and this is what we'll use for the push press and any form of the jerk. Also now in the push press, the weight is so heavy that it's very fatiguing and taxing for her to get in the pressing position. Clients that have a hard time in the rack really struggle with this because they basically are faking the push press from this position. But when the weight is heavy, it's very inefficient. They'll never be able to push press the load that they're actually capable of doing until they can reconcile this rack position a little bit and get the bar to seat on the frame or on the delts. Now she doesn't have to spend any energy holding that bar up off of her because it's seated right on her midline, right on her frame. This is the position she's going to drive overhead from. When we go overhead, we want the elbows at about a 45-degree angle, right? They're not in the pressing position, and they're not straight ahead and high like when she catches at the bottom of the clean. About a 45-degree angle here, and then largely, aside from the dip and the drive that we discussed, the mechanics are going to be the same. She's going to take a big, huge breath. She's going to stabilize her midline. She's going to pull her face out of the way, and she's going to dip drive and transfer that power to the bar. She finishes overhead just like last time, turns her core back on. Just a quick check to make sure she's not loading her low back and that she's returning to neutral at the top. Then she'll bring that bar back down. Right? In the beginning, until clients are really excellent at this movement, I don't like them to chain them together, because Of course, after a few reps, the movement degrades really badly and they start getting into this position with the hips and the knees shooting forward again. So I like to keep them separate till the client has a really solid handle on the correct mechanics. Now she's gonna get ready to go again. She brings her elbows up a little bit, big breath, tight core. She's gonna drive the knees laterally on this axis, stay in the heel, and transfer that power to the bar, head and chest through at the top. And she comes back down. Good. One more time just to illustrate some of these mechanics that we're really avoiding. Sometimes if Erin starts to look up, she's going to start to push press by shooting the knees and the hips forward. We see this all the time. It's a terrible position to get into. And then when she drives that bar overhead, it might still be out in front of her. It's almost like a semi-bench press. If this angle comes forward here, the back can be broken. The hips and knees can still be forward. The client's can have trouble recovering from this position. This is no good. So one more time with the correct push press. Elbows are going to be up at a 45. She's going to take a big breath, be in the heel, short punchy dip and drive, head and chest through at the top, core comes back on, neutral midline, no excessive loading of the low back. She brings it back down, and we're good. That's the push press, guys. Study on that one, and we'll move on to the jerk.